Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good to see you. Beautiful day yesterday. Looks like we have another beautiful day today. So I asked Lee last Sunday for some feedback about, the class. She said, Oh, Jack, don't worry.
I want to make sure of that.
Don't worry.
Okay.
Yep. So I said, a little feedback. She goes, it's, very good, good topic, but don't recap. Like, you spend too much time recapping. And I said, well, guess what? You're going to get yourself a nice recap this
She doesn't understand you were teaching.
I mean, you got to recap. Come on. It's ridiculous. Anyways, I'm not gonna do a giant recap. I don't want to get yelled at. I think we left off just very quick recap for Lee. We started this story with the Israelites really in a life and death struggle against what other people? Philistines, right? Philistines, where did they live in relation? Really? Okay, yeah, right on the sea, right? Yes, the west coast, yes. Controlled most of the good farmland as well, controlled a lot of the trade. Much more powerful than the Israelites. Had access to iron, which allowed them to make stronger weapons, more powerful weapons. The Israelites, as we're going to look at, had some access to them, but there were very few blacksmiths in Israel at this time, and so only the elite nobility would have access to iron weapons. Everybody else usually used, very simple, Bronze Age weapons, usually a bronze-tipped spear or something like that. Some very rudimentary implements, including farming tools as well, and we'll see that as well. Anyways, Samuel was a gift from God, literally, right? We know the story that Hannah went in to pray to God for deliverance from her struggles, right? She was in a very difficult situation. She prayed to God. God delivered her from this situation by providing Samuel. And as we're going to see, Samuel was actually gifted back to God, right? Into the hands and into the life of Eli and his sons, and kind of the life and ritual of the temple, of the tabernacle, actually. And so let's just take a look at this. That's the extent of the recap. I hope that is satisfactory. Okay, good. Thank you. No, and listen, she keeps me on point. I'll be jibber-jabbering up here on one slide. But I guess, They have a saying at Fidelity that feedback is a gift, right? Is it, though? Is it really? All right. So a couple things here. Verse 11 of the second chapter of 1 Samuel. Yep. Actually, 1 Samuel 2, verse 11. And Elkanah went to Ramah to his house, and the child did minister unto the Lord before Eli the priest. Okay, so he was left here and worked, and we're not really told what capacity, but I'm sure that he's going to learn all of the, as we've already talked about, the ritual and routine of the tabernacle, what to do, where. He certainly is going to help out with the sacrifices, maybe doing very menial tasks, but he's going to learn to read and write. That was a big thing with the scribes and with the priests. They needed to learn to read, to write in order to keep track of things. And also we know that the sacred scriptures that they already had needed to be copied down and kept secure. And we know that this is going to become a problem later on in Israel's history, right? Because during the time of Joash's reign, they actually found a copy of the Law of Moses that they hadn't found, right? And they were very concerned that they weren't following the law as prescribed in the Law of Moses. They end up, I think Josiah actually rent his clothes, right? Put sackcloth on. Anyways, going down a rabbit hole. Samuel is going to stay there with Eli, and then there's just a little caveat on the next one. Actually, a couple things. No, and 11, Ramah, Elkanah went to Ramah. That's where he lived. Ramah is going to play an important part in Israel's history in a negative way, actually Judah history, because it's going to be the staging ground where the Babylonians are going to bring all of the captives from Jerusalem. Ramah is a little north of Jerusalem, so they're going to bring all the booty and all of the people that were made captive after the fall of Jerusalem. And this is where they're going to divide up the people, all of the slaves now. These Jews are now slaves to be deported into Babylon. And so that's where Matthew is going to quote from Jeremiah about there. Rachel weeping for her children but could not be comforted, right? And he uses it in relationship to the slaughter of the innocents by Herod. But if you look at the context of that in Jeremiah, it's actually where mothers were weeping for their children that were being taken away to Babylon, and they were going to a different place. And Jeremiah says, you can weep now, but your weeping is going to cease because we're going to come back into the land. You will see them again. So take a look at that when you get a chance. Jeremiah, I don't know it off the top of my head. I'll look at it. But anyways, Ramah is where Elkanah lived. He leaves. Hannah leaves with him, but Samuel is going to stay behind, and he's going to become a great prophet. We talked about this as well. The behavior of Eli's sons was deplorable, to the point where the children of Israel hated going and sending sacrifices because Eli's sons were taking the best of the meat before it was even offered to God. There was sexual immorality in the tabernacle as well. And so these were bad guys, sons of Belial. And when that term is used in Scripture, it can be used for a couple different things. Sexually immoral people, number one, but also just bad guys, right? Worthless. I think the term comes from the Hebrew word that means worthless or base. And so they were worthless people. They were kind of just very lustful people. They wanted power. They wanted control. And Eli really struggled with him, didn't he? In fact, he says, listen, I've heard of all the bad things that you're doing. Why are you doing these things? And they didn't listen, obviously. And so let's start here for today in verse 26. And the child Samuel grew on and was in favor with the Lord and also with men. And so just that statement there, is that used for somebody else? Christ, Linda, yeah, absolutely Christ. And there's one other person that it was used for. Mary, there's different verbiage or wording used there, but it's similar. Yeah, I didn't think of that, but yeah. Solomon, yeah, I would say Solomon. How about John the Baptist? It's used by John the Baptist as well, that he grew in favor in God and man, but also definitely Christ, right? And so this is kind of the tradition, right? You have a prophet with Samuel. Samuel's going to be one of the great first prophets. He's going to grow in favor with men and with God. And John the Baptist is going to do the same thing. And then, of course, Christ as well, as Luke tells us. Luke tells us that was the case. But before Samuel is going to become, kind of a prophet with authority and power, major changes are going to have to take place within the priesthood at that time. And so God, if we look at the end of this chapter 2 of 1 Samuel, God really kind of lays it out to Eli, like what the deal is, and why the priesthood is going to be taken away from him and his family. Verse 34, he talks about, I gave you this in verse 30. I said indeed that thy house and the house of thy father should walk before me forever. But now saith the Lord, be it far from me, for them that honor me I will honor, and them that despise me shall be lightly esteemed. And so he's talking about his sons there. They despised God. They weren't following after God. They were following after their own lusts and desires. And because of that, the priest is going to be taken away. Verse 34, and this shall be a sign unto thee, that shall come upon thy two sons, on Hophni and Phinehas, and one day they shall die, both of them. And I will raise me up a faithful priest, that shall do according to that which is in mine heart and in my mind, and I will build him a sure house, and he shall walk before mine anointed forever. And so, there's a messianic prophecy right there, right? One of prophesying of Christ. But to a limited extent, it also it's talking about Samuel as well, in a short-term sense, that he is going to become the main religious leader after the death of Eli and his sons. Eli and his sons are going to die after the Philistines are going to take the Ark of the Covenant, as we're going to find out. Okay, questions, comments on this? Interesting story so far, right? A lot of different moving parts. Okay, and now remember, this is all happening during a time of great oppression. Okay, so, and it's very difficult as Americans living in 2020. Wow. Really think about oppression and poverty and injustice. Okay, and that's what was going on. The Philistines had complete control over Israel. There were a few people that kind of rebelled against them, but it was few and far between. And they would send out raiding parties, as we're going to see, and just take whatever they wanted, whether it was, foodstuffs or people in general as slaves, and bring them back to the cities of the Philistines. So a very difficult time.
Almost like the Congo today.
That's a great point. Yeah, there are, and so there's actually areas today, Bob, right, that's going on. The Congo. It's happening in Nigeria as well, where they're kidnapping girls. Boko Haram is taking young Nigerian girls for wives, for concubines, whatever you want to call them. So it still goes on today, right? And so try to imagine living in a world like that, and what that has on, the effect it has on your mind psychologically, to always be oppressed, to always be looking over your shoulder. Are the Philistines coming? They're coming to take our stuff, right? And so we read these things as great stories, but there was real people involved in this, and real tears were shed, and there was a lot of weeping and gnashing of teeth because of what the Philistines were doing to the people at this time, and they were desperate for a savior, because Eli and his family just they were in it for themselves. They have this massive problem on their hands, which are the Philistines. And what are Eli's sons worried about? About enriching themselves, right? And doesn't that happen quite a bit even today? You have a small group of people that kind of take all the power and all of the control and all of the money, while the vast majority of the people kind of live in poverty and struggle on a daily basis. Okay.
You can recap again.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Let's recap. Let's recap the recap. Okay, there we go. All right, so let's take a look at 1 Samuel, the 3rd chapter.
Chapter 2.
Yeah, okay.
Then Hannah prayed and said, My heart rejoices in
Wait a minute.
No problem. This is a beautiful chapter. It's a beautiful.
boasts over my enemies, for I delight in your deliverance. There is no one holy like the Lord.
Steve, can you come get your dad, please? This is great. All right, 1 Samuel chapter 3. Verse 1, And the child Samuel ministered unto the Lord before Eli, and the word of the Lord was precious in those days. There was no open vision. So there's a couple interesting things here, right? Have the child Samuel ministering to Eli and ministering to God with Eli's help. I think I mentioned this last week, but I think on a certain level, Eli was looking at this relationship with Samuel as like a redemption type of thing, right? It's just my opinion. He had a chance to really, maybe atone for some of the mistakes that he made with his sons. I don't know. But, Eli knew his stuff, right? He was a man of God. He was a high priest. I think he was well When he died, he was in his 90s, so he lived a very long, full life around God and the tabernacle. And there was a time where, I think he was very dedicated to God. And even I think, just look at the character of Eli. I think he still was dedicated to God, but he struggled with his kids. He struggled with providing them direction, and on a certain level, he allowed a lot of this stuff to happen. And God, at the end of the day, did blame Eli. We can kind of look at it for our own lens and maybe, take a softer approach on Eli. But to God, he made so many mistakes that he had the priesthood was going to be taken away from him. Anyways, the word of the Lord was precious in those days. There was no open vision. What do you think that means? There was no open vision.
Mine says there's no frequent visions.
No frequent vision, yeah. Yeah, so God was not communicating through visions as he had done in the past. And I think that's why do you think that was? Like, why wouldn't God be communicating with the priests?
Because they're not interested in him.
Yeah, for sure, Linda. Yeah, I would agree with that. They weren't interested in God. They didn't want to have a relationship with God. They didn't want to communicate with God. And so why would God want to communicate with them? So I think there's a lesson there, right? I think when we open our hearts and minds to God, God wants to dwell in us. He wants to have a communication with us. He wants to have a loving relationship with us. And so we have to have the right mind and attitude for that relationship to take place. Hophni and Phinehas didn't have it, obviously. They were busy doing their own thing. They despised God. And Eli, for whatever reason, God actually did talk to him in the previous chapter, didn't he? But it wasn't good stuff. It was actually very bad stuff. I guess all the cool kids are wearing yellow today, Bob. All right.
Glad you got the memo.
Verse 2. And it came to pass at that time when Eli was laid down in his place and his eyes began to wax dim that he could not see. Now that's interesting. So, I think he was blind. He certainly was blind physically, right? But was there a certain blindness, a certain spiritual blindness that Eli, I think for whatever reason, he had gone blind spiritually. And he wasn't leading the way he should have, whether in his family or in the priesthood as well. Imagine allowing all of this stuff to go on, the immorality at the tabernacle. At the tabernacle, all of these things were going on. The holy place, the place where God was dwelling in the Ark of the Covenant. Now this is really interesting. So there's a spiritual blindness on Eli's part. And ere the lamp of God went out in the temple of the tabernacle of the Lord, where the ark of God was, and Samuel was laid down to sleep. Now, what's important about that? The lamp of God went out.
Well, the physical lamp is not ever supposed to go out.
Okay, now that's right. Go ahead, Linda. Continue.
And the idea that, this just hit me now.
Yeah.
The idea that Eli is blind, he doesn't know whether the light's on or not.
Mm-hmm.
So Samuel's got that job.
Yes.
Make sure the light stays on.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. Yeah, so let's, absolutely, Linda, thank you for that. Let's take a look at Exodus 27. And Linda had mentioned this, right? It wasn't supposed to ever go out. It was, so Exodus 27, in verse 20, let's take a look at this. And thou shalt command the children of Israel that they bring the pure olive oil beaten for the lamp, to cause the lamp to burn always. In the tabernacle of the congregation without the veil which is before the testimony, Aaron and his son shall order it from evening to morning before the Lord. It shall be a statute forever unto their generations on the behalf of the children of Israel. So as Linda mentioned, it was to be burning continually. And so somebody had that job. Now I never thought about it as Samuel having the job, but it's possible. But somebody, they let the light the light in the tabernacle to go out, and it shouldn't have. So I think there's a lesson there, right? I think, literally the light went out in the tabernacle. But on a spiritual level, was there any light? Was there any guidance that was going on during this time by the religious leaders of Israel? It was darkness. It was, gross darkness covers the people, as Isaiah says, right? There was a darkness at this time, a spiritual darkness that was happening. Eli was blind. His sons were spiritually corrupt and spiritually blind. And now, on top of it all, the light in the tabernacle had gone out. All right, this is the two guys up here with the phones. Yeah.
It's your 15-minute one.
So that's interesting. And so Philistines are around, right? There's darkness on the outside. There's pressure from the outside. Philistines are looking to wipe Israel out and take their land. Bare bones. That's what they were trying to do. And then internally, there's spiritual darkness. There's no leadership. There's no political leadership. There's no religious or spiritual leadership going on in Israel. It truly was a dark time. The light of God's people had gone out, and they were being pressured internally. They were being pressured externally as well. And so in this mix, into this fire, little Samuel is put, right? This little child, he's put into this. There's a lot of major problems going on in Israel at this time, and Samuel was going to be the savior of all of these things. Okay? All right. So Samuel was laid down to sleep, verse 3. Verse 4, and the Lord called Samuel, and he answered, "Here am I." That's great, right? You're a little child, right? Samuel, yes, I'm here. And so we'll go on. And he ran unto Eli. It's interesting. He ran like, oh, Eli needs me. He's going to go run. So I don't like to read into a lot of stuff, but then again, I do like to read into a lot of stuff, right? And so when I read that, Samuel ran to Eli. I think there was a closeness and a love that they had for each other. I do. And I think Eli is going to rely on Samuel for a lot of things, kind of do a lot of things around there. But it's going to be kind of like a grandson and a grandfather, that type of thing. And just physically, you remember, Eli is going to be blind, and I think he relied on Samuel to kind of guide him around. And so Samuel's sleeping, and now here's Eli, his blind, grandfather, this person that he really loves and reveres, Samuel, is there a problem? Samuel goes running to see what the deal is with Eli. Verse 5, he runs unto Eli and says, "Here I am. What do you need? For you called me. You just called me." And he said, I didn't call you. Lie down, buddy. You're dreaming. And he went and lied down. Verse 6, and the Lord called Samuel again. And Samuel arose and went to Eli and says, "Hey, here I am, Eli. You called me." And he answered, "I called not, my son. Lie down." So there's a gentleness there with Eli, right? I didn't call you, my son. It's not like, hey, I already told you I didn't call you, go lay down. There's a kindness and there's a gentleness, right? There's a patience with Eli. And so there's a little, verse 7, now Samuel did not yet know the Lord. What? That's a very interesting thing to put in here. Samuel didn't know the Lord. Now, he had to know the name of God. He had to know the rituals and the routines of the tabernacle and the sacrifices and what they meant. But what do you think that verse means? Samuel didn't know God yet. What do you think that's? Go ahead, Bob. I'm sorry.
He hadn't reached spiritual maturity.
Okay, spiritual.
He knew of God.
Yes. Okay.
He didn't know God.
Yeah, all right, I like that. Someone else, Bob?
It's the word of the Lord had not yet been revealed to him.
Okay.
The word.
Ah, yeah. Yeah.
He didn't have a personal relationship at all.
Okay, yeah, I like that. I like all of those things, right? A spiritual maturity, understanding the Word of God, but he didn't have that relationship with God, that direct relationship with God, right? Eli had it, right? Even though he got bad news from God in the last chapter. But yeah, this is good, the beginning of Samuel really understanding God and building that strong, healthy, powerful relationship with God, right? There's a lot of food for thought in this stuff. So verse 7 kind of explains, why Samuel kept on running to Eli as a little boy. But neither was the word of the Lord yet revealed unto them. And the Lord called Samuel the third time, so 3 times. I don't know if there's any significance in that. And he arose and went to Eli and said, Here am I, for thou didst call me. Stop calling me. And so now there's kind of a little light bulb goes off in Eli's head. He's like, oh, God's calling him, right? Eli perceived, I think it says here, Eli perceived that the Lord had called the child. Therefore Eli said unto Samuel, Go lie down, and it shall be, if he call thee, that thou shalt say, Speak, Lord, for thy servant hears. That's a great line, right? That's a great line. This is the way Eli's telling me, hey, this is the way you should answer God. Speak, Lord, for your servant hears. And that really should be our attitude, isn't it? Every time we read the Scripture, speak, Lord, for thy servant hears. Opening our hearts and minds in prayer, building that relationship with God, seeing God on the outside too. The heavens declare the righteousness of God and the glory of God, the Psalms tells us, right? So, when we go out, and I'm just speaking for myself, like beautiful things out in creation, like the mountains. The mountains are always inspirational to me, the White Mountains anyways. And I often, when I'm looking, particularly when it's around this time of year and all the colors are changing and it's beautiful, speak, Lord, for thy servant hears. It's God kind of speaking through nature to it. I don't want to get too crunchy and hippie and everything else, but there's a certain power, right, that when we humble ourselves before God and look at His creation and the beauty of His creation.
And you see a rainbow, see God's love.
That's right. That's absolutely right. Yeah. God's speaking to us every time we see a rainbow. Yeah, He's reminding us of His love and His covenant that He made with Noah. That's right. Yeah. So just some things I think about. So let's see what God tells Samuel. Right now, we're not told he's a child. We're not told how old he is. He's still referred to as a child, so probably under 12, 13 years old. So let's see. And the Lord said to Samuel, Behold, verse 10, and the Lord came and stood and called as other times, Samuel, Samuel. So God sends an angel here, right? And so the angel is there. We're not told who the angel was. Then Samuel answered, Speak, for thy servant hears, right? He doesn't say speak, Lord, by the way, right? It's like, listen, Eli finds out. It's like, hey, you went off script. I said, speak, Lord, for thy servant hears. So he says, speak, for thy servant hears. This is what God tells to Samuel. Behold, I will do a thing in Israel at which both the ears of everyone that heareth shall tingle. And that day I will perform against Eli all things which I have spoken concerning his house when I began. I will also make an end. For I have told him that I will judge his house forever for the iniquity which he knoweth, because his sons made themselves vile, and he restrained them not. And so that was really the issue. His sons had made themselves vile. That is a very strong word. Imagine being vile in the sight of God. Like, that's a bad place to be, isn't it? Right? And so they were vile in the eyes of God. And so Eli didn't do anything about it. And that's really why the punishment was going to be brought upon his house. So you can imagine poor Samuel now, right? He gets the bad news. He gets this bad news as a child, right? And now, should I tell Eli? Should I hold it back? You feel you're in a very difficult situation, telling somebody that you love and care about this bad news. And this was the situation. And it says there in verse 15, and I think this kind of supports what we were talking about, that Samuel did a lot of the kind of everyday menial labor, physical labor. And Samuel lay unto the morning and opened the doors of the house of the Lord. That's a pretty good job, right? What's your job? Oh, I open up the tabernacle every morning. That's a pretty sweet job. And Samuel feared to show Eli the vision. Yeah, that's a very human response, isn't it? To be fearful of showing. And then Eli said unto Samuel, and he called Samuel, Samuel, my son, and he answered, here am I. So now Eli actually is calling. Finally you're calling. And he said, what is this thing that the Lord hath said unto thee? I pray thee, hide it not from me. God do so to thee, and more also, if thou hide anything unto me of all the things that he said unto thee. Right? And so he's kind of demanding now, that Samuel tell him exactly what God said, and Samuel does it. Told him every whit and held nothing from him. And that's kind of like a little kid, right? He's getting permission now to tell him everything, and he just lets it all out, right? Everything. And then, Eli's response is pretty interesting. And he said, it is the Lord. Let him do what seemeth him good. And so Eli, I think, is resigned to his fate at this point. He's resigned to the fact that the priesthood is being taken away from him. His sons are going to die on the same day. And he blew it, right? He didn't restrain his children while they were doing all kinds of evil right in front of him. Didn't do anything about it. And we're not told why. Like, why, Eli? Why would you? Because I think Eli was a good person. I think he really was a spiritual person. And he had, he was a judge of Israel. He did a lot of good things. But he didn't, he didn't restrain his children, his sons, while they were doing all of this evil. Questions, comments?
Vile is blaspheme God in the NIV footnote.
Okay, blaspheme God, right. So most likely blaspheming God in behavior and in words, right? Sons of Belial, for sure. That's good. Yes, Linda, go ahead.
So Samuel has to do the same thing at the beginning and the end, because it's the same message that he has to deliver to Saul.
Yes.
So he was learned from a young age that when God gives you bad news to deliver,
yes,
you just deliver it.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, so he had to do it with Eli, and then he's going to do it with Saul as well, and that's really going to hurt him, by the way. And we'll look at that. That's really going to bother him because he generally loved Saul. He loved him as a son. And remember, Samuel is going to have trouble with his own sons, by the way. He's going to have trouble with his own sons. His sons are not going to be good leaders at all. And that's going to be one of the things that the leaders of Israel are going to use as an excuse to get a king. He's like, your sons they're not good leaders. So that's interesting. Righteous men, Eli, Samuel are going to have difficulty with their kids, right? So even in the Bible, kids are causing problems. Still causing problems today. Okay, so let's, we got some time, okay. Verse 19, and Samuel grew, and the Lord was with him, and did not let none of his words fall to the ground. Bob, do you have a translation there in yours, verse 19?
1 Samuel, what chapter are we in?
3:19, 1 Samuel 3:19.
Yeah.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
Well, that's all right, I'm okay.
Okay.
1 Samuel 3:19.
Yes.
Got it. The Lord was with Samuel as he grew up, and he let none of Samuel's words fall to the ground.
Okay. All right. So I thought maybe there was another phrase that they used. So all his words were held up. He spoke the truth. They were powerful words. You know, his words falling to the ground. He was now, you know, it's kind of like with Jesus kind of talking to the scribes and Pharisees, right? They couldn't find anything against him, right? That's what I thought of anyways. Verse 20, in all Israel, from Dan up in the north, right? Dan up in the north, all the way down to the south in Beersheba. So whenever in the Old Testament that phrase is used quite a bit, from Dan to Beersheba, it's just saying all of Israel. Everybody. It's kind of like saying today from LA to New York, right? All of the United States was affected by something. All of Israel, Dan and Beersheba, knew that Samuel was established to be a prophet in the Lord. So news is going to spread of Samuel and how, wow, this you know, he's one of a kind. He's a prophet. He's going to be a great leader. God's with this person. We need to follow him. He's got the vision of God. God's talking to him. And the Lord appeared again in Shiloh, for the Lord revealed himself to Samuel in Shiloh by the word of the Lord. So again, there's that relationship that Samuel is going to very quickly, Bob talked about spiritual maturity, right? As Samuel is going to grow, he's going to grow in favor with men. That's mentioned here in verse 20. Everyone from Dan and Beersheba is going to recognize him as a prophet. He's going to grow in favor with God because God is going to continue to speak to him through direct visions, right? Sending an angel. You know, and that's pretty powerful. That is a pretty powerful position and a pretty powerful relationship to have if you're a leader, right? That would be nice in our lives, wouldn't it? If God, you know, communicated to us like that, you know, in a direct way, face to face with an angel or something like that. That'd be nice. But that's not the way it's done now, right? God talks to us through his word. I think he also talks to us through each other, through the love and the wisdom that Scripture brings to each and every one of us. And so I think that's why it's important to have a very strong relationship with God through prayer and through reading, but also it's very important to have a strong relationship with each other as a group of called out ones, as an ecclesia. To build each other up, to guide each other, to help each other in our trials, our tribulations, our suffering, that type of thing. All right. Let's see. Chapter 4. So this is kind of the setup of the fall of the house of Eli. Verse 1 of the 4th chapter of 1 Samuel. Now Israel went out against the Philistines to battle and pitched beside Ebenezer, and the Philistines pitched in Aphek. I believe, and I don't have a map of this, but Ebenezer is kind of up on a hill. Aphek is on the hill as well. And so you had them kind of lined up on the hilly region, and then down below was a valley. And so when they pitch their tent, that's where the main armies are gonna be, but they're actually gonna do the fighting in the valley, and that's usually how it was done. And usually during this time, you know, each side would have their group of champions and one big champion, right? There was always like the biggest guy and the strongest guy. As we're gonna find out, we know that the Philistines' champion was Goliath, right? He was the biggest and baddest of all of the warriors of the Philistines. Now, this is directly. If you remember, your literature from high school, the Iliad and the Odyssey, right? They each, particularly in the Iliad, everyone was a champion, right? You had all of these champions. The Greeks' champion was who? Who was the great champion of the Greeks? Who? Adonis. Adonis was one of the gods. He was the goddess of beauty. Some people have referred to me as Adonis a few times. So I thank you for bringing that up. It begins with an A. It begins with an A, Nancy, so you're close.
Achilles.
Who said Achilles?
The guy with the yellow shirt.
Okay. Bob, thank you. Yeah, so Achilles was the Greeks' great hero, right? And he's going to end up going against the Troy's great hero, who was Paris was the brother of this great hero. Hector, right? Hector and Achilles are going to have the great battle outside of the walls of Troy. Achilles is going to win and then drag Hector's body all the way around Troy, right? So anyways, eventually Paris is going to kill Achilles by taking a bow and shooting him right in his Achilles heel. Anyways, this is kind of the warfare, right? You would have your champions go out first and fight, and then depending on what happens, you would have the other kind of main battle groups kind of clash. And as we're going to see probably next week, maybe we'll get to it if I recap. I don't have a big recap. That's going to happen with David and with Goliath as we go on. All right. So, anyways, let's get through this. Verse 6. They're going to bring the Ark of the Covenant into battle with them because they felt that, hey, the Ark of the Covenant, this is where God is. This is, it's going to show the Philistines the power of God. It's a sacred vessel. It has like strategic power or spiritual power to it. But, God wasn't with them. It's irrelevant if the Ark, you bring the Ark. The Ark at the end of the day is just a material. And God wasn't with them because of their behavior. God wasn't with them because they had turned their backs on God. And so this is really going to be the beginning of the judgment. And this may have been, I'm trying to think too, again, maybe overthinking things or reading too much into it. But this almost seems like, to me, like an act of desperation on the part of the Israelites and Eli. Like, we got to bring the Ark out. This is our last ditch hope. Let's bring the Ark out, and then this is really going to put us over the top, and we're going to be able to kill the Philistines and finally be rid of them, right? And so I think maybe Eli is trying to, work his way around what God had told him, what was going to happen. Trying to control the situation. We do that a lot, don't we? We try to control situations. And I think Eli was trying to control the situation and try to, how can I work around what God told me in this vision that everyone's going to die? Linda, go ahead.
Well, this is saying that the people are the ones that make the decision. First off, they don't ask God who's going to win.
Yes.
And then Eli's going along again, because it's the people.
Yes.
Who
let's fetch the Ark. Yes.
Bring the Ark.
That's right. Yeah.
Because they've just had 4,000 men killed.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. In verse 2, and the Philistines put themselves in array against Israel, and when they had joined the battle, Israel was smitten before the Philistines, and they slew of the army in the field about 4,000 men. So yeah, the people are like, let's bring the Ark. He was like, hey, great idea. It was a move of desperation for sure. They had just been slaughtered by the Philistines. They could bring the Ark out. Hophni and Phinehas in verse 4, they were with them the Ark. And so when the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord came into the camp, all Israel shouted with a great shout, so the earth rang again. Wow, so it's really, pumping up the people. You're getting them going, right, Linda?
Well, then in verse 7, initially it works.
That's right.
Philistines
Yes.
recognize that the Ark is a powerful thing.
Yes, that's right. Yep. And so it does have the desired effect, but then and the Philistines were afraid, and then some of the Philistines are like, whoa, let's just kind of think this through. Let's not be rash. Be strong and quit yourselves like men, O ye Philistines, that you be not servants unto the Hebrews, as they have been to you. Quit yourselves like men and fight. Act like men. Stop being, scared of this Ark of the Covenant, right? And so they did. They kind of, the leaders of the Philistines rallied the Philistines again, and there's going to be another great slaughter. And the Philistines fought in verse 10, and Israel was smitten. And they fled every man into his tent, and there was a very great slaughter, for there fell of Israel 30,000 footmen, right? Whew. Now we're not talking about a few hundred men. We're talking really about the fighting force of Israel at that time. 30,000 men, and they were all scattered. And so as a military force, Israel was completely beaten at this time, completely beaten. And what happens to the Ark? It's taken away, right? The Philistines are actually going to take it to their city and present it before Dagon, their god, right? And there's an interesting story that They walk in, what happens to Dagon? Poof, falls over, right? Put him back up, poof, falls over again. So, but this is Eli, Hophni, and Phinehas are going to die in battle. And then when Eli hears it, he's gonna fall over on his chair and break his neck. He says because he was a large man. He is in his 90s, large guy, all over. Okay, let's stop there. Any questions?